We've all been told that cenotes are simply natural sinkholes filled with crystal clear water, beautiful diving destinations for tourists seeking adventure. But what if I told you that beneath their serene surfaces lie structures so precise, so impossibly ancient, that modern archaeologists refuse to discuss them publicly? Doesn't make sense, does it? Natural formations don't build corridors. They don't arrange human remains in ceremonial pattern. They don't hum with frequencies that make divers' equipment malfunction hundreds of feet below the surface. Yet evidence like this exists across the Yucatan Peninsula, hidden in underwater caves that descend into complete darkness. There are tunnels carved with geometric precision, chambers sealed for thousands of years, skeletal remains positioned as if waiting for something to return. Today, we're uncovering 6 cenotes that hold secrets so disturbing, you'll never look at these so-called natural wonders the same way again. Cenote Angelita sits 18 kilometers south of Tulum, Mexico, and at first glance appears unremarkable. A circular opening in the jungle floor, approximately 60 meters wide, filled with water so clear you can see straight to the bottom. Or so divers thought. In 1995, a German cave diver named Matthias Brenner was exploring Angelita's depths when his dive computer began malfunctioning at exactly 30 meters below the surface. The readings made no sense. Temperature dropping rapidly, pressure spiking without explanation. And then he saw it. A thick cloud layer suspended underwater, hovering like fog frozen in time. At first, Matthias assumed it was a thermocline, a natural layer where water temperatures shift. But as he descended through the mist, his headlamp revealed something impossible. Tree branches, dozens of them, standing upright on the cenote floor, perfectly preserved as if submerged only yesterday. Yet radiocarbon dating later suggested these trees had been underwater for over 10,000 years. The cloud itself defies explanation. It's not water. It's not air. Scientific analysis identified it as a hydrogen sulfide layer, a toxic barrier that separates the fresh water above from the salt water below. But that doesn't explain the trees, their unnatural preservation, or why divers consistently report feeling watched when passing through the cloud. Some describe hearing whispers, faint and rhythmic, as if the trees themselves are speaking. In 2003, a team from the University of Barcelona attempted to map the cenote's lower chambers. Their sonar detected a tunnel extending horizontally from the base, approximately 200 meters long and perfectly straight. When they tried to enter, 2 divers experienced sudden, unexplainable panic. Both surfaced immediately, refusing to return. One later described the tunnel entrance as carved, not eroded, with edges too smooth to be natural. The team sealed their findings and left within 24 hours. Local Mayan elders have a different explanation. They call Angelita the Weeping Gate, claiming it's an entrance to Xibalba, the underworld of Mayan mythology. According to their stories, the trees aren't preserved by chemistry. They're guardians, placed there by ancient priests to mark the boundary between the living world and the realm of death. To this day, no one has mapped Angelita's full depth, and the Mexican government quietly discourages deep dives beyond the cloud layer. If natural sinkholes can hide gateways to lost worlds, what else lies beneath the Yucatan's limestone bedrock? Cenote Escalado, located near Tulum's coastal highway, earned its name for a reason. The skeleton cenote. In the early 1990s, recreational divers began discovering human remains scattered across its underwater floor. At first, archaeologists assumed these were natural drownings or accidental deaths. But closer examination revealed something far stranger. The bones weren't scattered randomly. They were arranged. In 1997, a joint team from the National Institute of Anthropology and History descended into Escalado with underwater cameras and excavation tools. What they documented changed everything. 17 individual skeletons, positioned in a perfect circle around a central stone altar. Each skull faced inward, toward the altar's flat surface, which bore carvings of a serpent devouring the sun. Radiocarbon dating placed the remains between 800 and 1,000 years old, aligning with the late classic Maya period. But here's what baffled researchers. The bodies weren't buried and later submerged. They were positioned underwater while the cenote was already flooded. How did ancient Maya place these remains in ceremonial formation at a depth of 40 meters without modern diving equipment? The altar itself raises more questions. It's a single block of limestone weighing approximately 600 kilograms, carved with precision that suggests metal tools. Yet the classic Maya had no such technology. The carvings show no chisel marks, no tool scratches, only smooth, deliberate lines that curve with impossible accuracy. Some researchers suggest the altar was carved on land and later lowered into the cenote, but no ropes, pulleys, or anchor points have ever been found. Dr. Elena Marquez, who led the 1997 expedition, noted something even stranger in her field journal. The skeletons showed no signs of trauma, no fractures, no evidence of violence. It's as if they simply stopped breathing, she wrote. All 17 at once, perfectly positioned, then submerged without disturbance. In 2008, divers reported discovering a second chamber beneath the altar room, accessible only through a narrow tunnel partially collapsed by sediment. Those who entered described seeing more remains. These ones fused into the rock itself, as if the limestone had grown around them. The Mexican government classified the site as archaeologically sensitive and restricted access. Today, only licensed researchers can dive Esqueleto, and they must submit reports within 48 hours of any findings. But whispers persist among the local dive community. Some claim to see lights flickering deep below the altar room, moving in patterns that suggest intelligence. Others report hearing a low hum, barely audible, that seems to vibrate through the water itself. And every few years, someone dives Esqueleto at night against regulations and surfaces, with stories of shadows that moved without a light source, of water that felt heavier than it should, of a presence that made them abandon their exploration and never return. The cenote remains open to researchers, but few stay long, because some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to remain as warnings. Cenote Calavera, just north of Tulum, presents a different kind of terror. Unlike the open pools of Angelita or Esqueleto, Calavera's entrance is a jagged hole in the earth, barely wide enough for a single diver to descend. The local name translates to Temple of Doom, and for good reason. Its entrance resembles a skull, with 3 dark openings that stare out from the jungle floor like hollow eye sockets. Tourists are drawn to its eerie beauty, but experienced divers know better. In 2001, an American cave diver named Robert Finch entered Calavera's main shaft, hoping to explore its rumored underground river system. He descended to 35 meters, where his dive light illuminated something that made him stop. A metal chain, corroded and ancient, embedded into the cavern wall. He followed it deeper, and the chain led to a stone door, rectangular and perfectly fitted into the rock face. Not a natural formation, not a modern installation. A door, carved and sealed thousands of years before the area was even inhabited, according to official records. Robert surfaced immediately and reported the finding to local authorities. Within 3 days, a team from Mexico City arrived with specialized equipment. They mapped the door, photographed the chain, and collected samples from the surrounding rock. Their report was never published. When Robert tried to access the site again 2 weeks later, he found the entrance collapsed, sealed with concrete and marked with a weathered sign that read "Closed for environmental protection." No further explanation. In 2015, a group of amateur divers ignored the closure and entered Calavera through a secondary opening. They brought underwater cameras and sonar mapping tools. What they recorded was later uploaded to a cave diving forum before being mysteriously removed. The footage showed the stone door, still intact, with the chain now severed. Behind the door, the camera captured a narrow passage descending at a steep angle, walls covered in glyphs that didn't match any known Mayan script. The final frame showed something moving in the darkness beyond, a shape too large to be a fish, undulating slowly before the camera feed cut to static. The divers never posted again. Their accounts went silent, and when forum members tried to contact them, every email bounced back as undeliverable. Cenote Calavera remains closed. But late at night, locals report seeing faint blue lights glowing from the sealed entrance, pulsing in rhythmic patterns like a heartbeat. And if you stand quietly near the jungle edge, you can sometimes hear it. A low, resonant hum rising from deep underground, as if something behind that stone door is still waiting. Some doors were never meant to be opened, and some secrets should remain buried. Cenote dos Hoyos, the cenote of two eyes, is one of the longest underwater cave systems in the world, stretching over 80 kilometers beneath the Yucatan jungle. It's also one of the most studied. And yet, despite decades of exploration, certain sections remain off-limits even to professional cave divers. The reason? In 1987, a French cave diving team descended into Dos Ojos with the goal of mapping its easternmost tunnels. What they found wasn't just a natural cave system, it was architecture. At approximately 50 meters depth, the team's lead diver, Philippe Durant, discovered a carved archway, perfectly symmetrical, leading into a chamber that shouldn't exist. The walls inside were smooth, almost polished, and covered in geometric patterns that repeated in fractal sequences. Philippe's dive computer recorded the chamber's dimensions: 12 meters wide, 8 meters tall, and extending 40 meters into the rock. But here's the impossible part. The chamber had no sediment, no algae growth, no signs of natural erosion. It was as if the space had been recently constructed and sealed. As Philippe explored further, his flashlight caught something embedded in the chamber's far wall. A disc, approximately 30 centimeters in diameter, made of a black stone that didn't reflect light. He reached out to touch it, and his entire dive team reported feeling a sudden pressure change, as if the water itself had become heavier. Philippe's regulator began malfunctioning. His air gauge dropped from 2,000 psi to 500 in seconds despite no visible leak. The team aborted immediately, ascending faster than recommended protocols. Philippe survived, but his dive computer's data was corrupted, showing depth readings that oscillated between 50 meters and over 200 meters, despite never leaving the chamber. When the French team tried to relocate the chamber 3 days later, it wasn't there. The archway had vanished, replaced by solid rock with no signs of passage. Sonar scans showed nothing. The Mexican Institute of Speleology launched an investigation, but their report concluded environmental disorientation and equipment malfunction. Philippe disagreed. He returned to France and never dove again. But in 2003, a separate team exploring Dos Ojos reported finding the chamber. Same dimensions. Same dimensions. They only photographed it. When the photos were analyzed, researchers noticed something strange. The geometric patterns on the walls appeared to be moving, shifting subtly between frames despite being shot only seconds apart. Some researchers suggested it was a trick of light and water refraction. Others believed the patterns were deliberately designed to create optical illusions. But the team's underwater archaeologist, Dr. Hector Ruiz, offered a different interpretation. "These aren't decorations," he said in an interview. "They're instructions, for what he wouldn't say." Since 2003, Dos Hoyos has been partially restricted. Divers can access the main caverns, but tunnels leading toward the eastern chambers require special permits that are rarely granted. And every few years someone reports finding the chamber again, always in a different location, always accompanied by equipment malfunctions and sudden pressure changes. Local guides refuse to discuss it. But when asked why certain tunnels remain closed, they offer the same answer. Some places weren't made for us to find. Cenote Samula, near the town of Valladolid, is smaller than the others, but what it lacks in size, it makes up for in sheer strangeness. The cenote itself is enclosed within a natural cavern, sunlight streaming through a single opening in the limestone roof. Tree roots dangle from above, reaching toward the water like skeletal fingers. Tourists visit daily, swimming in the shallow pool, unaware of what lies beneath. In 1979, a local diver named Javier Mendoza was hired to clean debris from Samula's floor. He descended to 18 meters, expecting trash and sediment. What he found instead were stones, dozens of them stacked in neat piles, arranged in straight lines that radiated from a central point. Each stone was roughly the same size, smoothed by hand, not water erosion. Javier surfaced and reported the finding. Archaeologists arrived within days. What they discovered was a submerged plaza, carefully constructed with limestone blocks, covering an area of approximately 200 square meters. At the center sat a circular platform, elevated slightly above the surrounding floor, with a single stone pillar rising from its middle. Carved into the pillar were symbols that matched Mayan astronomical charts. But here's the problem. The plaza was built underwater, not flooded after construction, but built while submerged. The stone showed no signs of displacement, no mortar or binding agents, yet they remained perfectly aligned despite thousands of years beneath the surface. Dr. Luis Gomez, who led the excavation, described it as architecturally impossible. "You can't stack stones underwater with this level of precision," he said. "The current alone would shift them." Yet here they are, undisturbed. When the team attempted to lift one of the stones for analysis, they discovered it was far heavier than expected. Standard limestone weighs around 2,400 kilograms per cubic meter. These stones weighed nearly double that. Mineralogical tests revealed a composition unlike any limestone in the region, with trace elements of metals that shouldn't naturally occur together. Further exploration revealed something even stranger. Beneath the plaza, sonar detected a hollow void, approximately 10 meters deep. The team drilled a small exploratory hole and lowered a camera. The footage showed a sealed chamber, its walls covered in murals depicting human figures descending into water, arms raised as if in worship or surrender. At the chamber's center sat a stone basin filled with liquid, not water, something darker, thicker, that didn't move when disturbed. The team sealed the hole and left. The Mexican government classified the site, and public access was quietly restricted. Samula remains open to tourists, but only the shallow areas. Divers are prohibited below 10 meters, and anyone caught attempting to reach the plaza faces immediate arrest. But locals tell a different story. They say the plaza wasn't built for worship. It was built as a barrier, to keep something sealed. And every few decades, during certain lunar alignments, the water in Samula turns dark, just for a moment, as if something below is testing the barrier's strength. No one stays to watch what happens next, because in the Yucatan, some places are sacred not because of what they contain, but because of what they keep buried. Cenote X Kaken, part of the larger Zitnup cave system, holds the final mystery. Unlike the others, X Kaken isn't remote. It's easily accessible, well lit, and frequented by tourists who come to admire its underground lake and hanging stalactites. But at night, when the lights go out and the tours end, X Kaken reveals its secret. In 1993, a maintenance worker named Carlos Herrera was inspecting the Cenotes lighting system late one evening. As he worked near the water's edge, he heard something. Not the drip of water or the echo of wind through the cave. It was a voice, faint, rhythmic, almost like chanting. Carlos assumed it was tourists who had stayed past closing. He called out. No response. The chanting continued. He followed the sound to the far side of the cenote, where the water meets a narrow underwater passage. The sound was coming from below. Carlos reported the incident, and the next day a team of acoustic engineers arrived with hydrophones. They submerged the equipment and recorded for 6 hours. What they captured defied explanation. Low-frequency vibrations, pulsing in regular intervals, forming patterns that resembled human speech, but in no known language. The recordings were sent to linguistic experts, who compared them to ancient Mayan, Olmec, and even pre-Columbian dialects. No match. Some researchers suggested the sounds were natural, water flowing through narrow tunnels, creating acoustic resonance. But that theory collapsed when analysts discovered something embedded in the recordings. Harmonics. Deliberate tonal structures that don't occur naturally. It was as if the cenote itself was producing music. Further investigation revealed the source. Deep below X Kaken, beyond the tourist-accessible areas, lies a submerged chamber that divers call the Echo Room. Its walls are lined with carved channels, precisely angled to amplify and direct sound waves. When water flows through these channels, it produces the chanting effect. But here's what makes it impossible. The channels were carved with a level of acoustic understanding that didn't exist until the 20th century. Whoever built them knew how sound behaves underwater, how frequencies travel through limestone, how to create resonance chambers that amplify specific tones. This knowledge predates modern physics by thousands of years. In 2005, a sound engineer named Dr. Amanda Reyes studied the Echo Room's acoustics. She concluded that the chamber was designed intentionally, not for worship or ceremony, but for communication. Someone long ago built a system to transmit sound across vast distances underwater. A network, she called it in her published paper, an ancient communication grid hidden beneath the Yucatan. The paper was met with skepticism and later retracted after pressure from archaeological institutions. Dr. Reyes left academia shortly after, but the chanting continues. Every night, when the cenote falls silent, the sound returns. Locals no longer investigate. They've learned to accept it as part of Exkikan's presence. But some believe the chanting isn't a recording or an echo of the past. They believe it's active, that somewhere deep beneath the cenote, something is still trying to communicate. And perhaps one day, it will find someone willing to listen. 6 cenotes, 6 impossibilities hidden beneath Mexico's serene waters. From the guardian trees of Angelita to the chanting chambers of Exkikan, these aren't just natural wonders. They're evidence of knowledge we've lost, civilizations we don't understand, and mysteries that refuse to stay buried. If you're fascinated by the secrets hidden in the world's most remote places, subscribe and let us know which cenote you dare to explore. But remember, some doors were sealed for a reason. Some barriers were built to protect us. And some mysteries should remain exactly where they are, beneath the surface, waiting in the dark.